Hi, in this video I want to talk a little bit more about how to use a lit review to make your research project more interesting. In previous videos I've talked a little bit about how you would go about writing a research project about the significance of Prince Harry and Meghan's decision to leave the royal family, and this happened early in 2020. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle we're talking about. And I've suggested in earlier videos that this is an example of media influence and action, talking about how the presence of media, particularly the presence of a celebrity media industry, has changed the way the royal family works, and that we can use that to understand how the presence of media pushes society and social institutions in a particular direction. And in earlier videos, I've also gone over how you can begin to tell an interesting story about the Harry and Meghan event by using media theory. That if we go off and look at how other academics have written about the significance of the royal family as a media phenomenon, as a long-running historical institution who have had to change the way they go about the work that they do because of the presence of a global media industry that's kind of always there and always demanding their attention. But there's a second trick to doing a literature review, to using a literature review to make your project more interesting. And this is that after you've cast around and looked for the general kind of ideas that a wide range of scholars have used to explain why a particular topic, in this case the royal family, is worthy of attention, the next thing you can do is drill down and focus on a particular set of questions. And so what I want to do in this video is talk about how we can approach this story using a couple of particular ideas from the literature on celebrity. And the reason I'm doing this is that there's a clear connection between the Harry and Meghan story and media theory. And I guess the point is that if we read media theory, if we read celebrity theory, we find that some of Prince Harry's concerns that he expressed about his wife's well-being are actually valid. Celebrity theory suggests that Harry has a point when he justified his decision to withdraw from full royal duties on the basis of the fact that he feared that his wife would suffer the same fate as his mother. As we know, Princess Diana, the presence of the paparazzi, the presence of the media industry, was certainly a factor in her death. She was being chased by paparazzi at the time of her death. And Prince Harry kind of said, well, I've seen the media destroy my mother. I don't want to see it destroy Meghan as well. And this provides us with a compelling bridge, because if we look at writing on media celebrity, we find that writing supports his fears. And in particular, there's a really great book on celebrity by a scholar called Chris Rojek, who is an incredibly prolific sociologist who wrote this fantastic book on celebrity called Fame Attacks. And there are a couple of ideas in Fame Attack that I think lend themselves particularly to the Meghan Markle story. And I suppose kind of this is one of the classic books, I would argue, that really explains why celebrities matter to the contemporary world. And Rojek talks about celebrities as Icarus-like figures, figures who are very public risk takers, and therefore become exemplars of how to lead and how not to lead your life. And one of the things that Rojek notes is that often we We associate with celebrities because they represent the dangers of excess, the dangers of fame. They represent kind of what happens, cautionary tales about what happens if we give in to all of our desires. The other thing that Rojek notes, which is particularly interesting and particularly relevant to this story, is that in the celebrity universe, very often it's women celebrities who are seen to pay a particularly heavy price for fame. And he notes research that indicates that female celebrities quite often don't live long, that female celebrities quite often die young, and they die young because they're seen as being somehow less resilient in terms of managing the price of fame. Now I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that is, Rojek suggests that this is a cumulative story that our culture that celebrity culture tells us over and over and over again, that women celebrities are particularly susceptible to the pressures of fame. Tragically, we've seen a very recent example of this in the UK with the suicide of Caroline Fleck, who was a reality TV presenter. But there are many other examples that come to mind. Amy Winehouse would be an example, but if we go back in history, we can talk about Marilyn Monroe, Janis Joplin, Natalie Wood, a series of, and Rojek suggests that this is actually kind of a trend where culture tells us that life is especially dangerous for women celebrities. So there's a connection there. If we look at Rojek, there's a connection between Rojek's ideas about the disproportionate price of fame that women celebrities make and the Harry and Meghan story. And the point I'm trying to make is that we can use Rojek to explain how the Harry and Meghan story isn't a self-contained entity. It's not just a story that's simply about Harry and Meghan and nothing else, but it's actually something which threads into a much longer and deeper, historically rooted story about women in the media. And indeed, if we move ahead from women from the topic of celebrities to more general representations of women in the media, there's also research out there, and here I'm referencing the work of the Cultural Indicators Project, which was a very well established research project that spent decades and decades looking at a variety of questions, one of them being how women are represented in media. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, in a little bit more depth later on. But one of the very early observations of the Cultural Indicators Project was that post-war popular culture has been particularly keen on telling stories about women who are punished for daring to be different. When women do things which don't kind of fit within some very stereotypical patriarchal understandings of what society prescribes is appropriate and not appropriate for women to do, quite often those women are punished for doing that. Now, there's a clear connection with Meghan Markle here. If we are to be believed what many of the stories around Meghan Markle concern, and certainly one of the things we can say with regard to their 2020 plans to be a different kind of royal, is that we're talking about someone who wanted to do things differently. She wanted her position in the royal family to function in a different way from what had traditionally been so. And when this idea emerged, she immediately became part of this longer trend about, or question, I guess, about how does media culture treat women who are different in some way, who behave differently, who try and change things. And one of the things that we do know from pre-existing research is that popular stories have got a long history of punishing women for doing that, and that's particularly the case with regard to celebrity discourse. So what we can do is we can connect Rojek to a broader issue, and through all of this we can see how the Meghan and Harry story tells us something about not just Meghan and Harry, but allows us to reflect on how media in general have been working over a series of decades, how their story connects to the growth of celebrity culture, and indeed how that celebrity culture itself reflects things that were already happening in popular culture in the post-war period. So I guess there are some lessons here in terms of doing a literature review, in the sense that what we would do is first we cast around for all of the ideas that scholars have applied to a particular example or area. But then the next thing we do is you try and find one or two that are going to really help you widen the audience for your research by taking your particular topic and connecting it to other ideas that particularly interest people. So that's kind of the second step, I guess, of a literature review. Remember, a literature review is really something where you are trying to find a narrative. You are trying to find a way of narrating, of telling a story about your topic such that your topic connects to other things that people care about. And that's how one example of how that general process would work when you're thinking about doing a research project on Meghan Markle and her relationship with the celebrity industry and the royal family. Okay, so I'll see you next time.